What's going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday. Another edition here of Set Bet Spike, powered by FTN Bets, live on our FTN Network YouTube page. Chris Meaney and Eric Young here with you for the next little bit. We are pretty much going back to back on our FTN Network airwaves with Set Bet Spike and Dangle Bet Set, powered by Game Plus Network and PointsBet Canada. Only 2 games on the ice, EY, to talk about. What are we going to do? I'm sure we'll finish. I'm sure we'll be able to fill the 46, 47 minutes we are required to fill. We always do. But today, to start us off, we are going to talk a little bit about last night's blowout. San Fran 38, Arizona 10. Niners look very, very dangerous. We will take a look at the Thanksgiving Day slate. 3 games on the schedule. We got the Bills and the Lions. Buffalo sticking in Detroit, where they beat Cleveland last week. They're going to stay there and play the Lions, who have won 3 straight games. Oh, baby, we called the Lions on this show over the Giants. We can be happy about that, I suppose, is one of the things that we got right. And we also have the Giants up again this week on Thursday, Thanksgiving Day, taking on the Dallas Cowboys. And then the third game on Thanksgiving Day is the Minnesota Vikings, who got waxed, absolutely waxed. I will take that loss. I thought they'd hang around. I really did. I was like, wow, a one-loss team at home, dogs. They got crushed by the Cowboys. They're going to take on the New England Patriots. Take a look at the rest of the Week 12 schedule. We'll take your starting to sit questions. We'll hit the waiver wire a little bit here. But we will start with last night. San Fran, Arizona, 38-10, as I mentioned. The Niners rolled. A lot is made of Jimmy G, right? The Niners won again. Jimmy G, no touchdowns. The Niners won again. Jimmy G, no touchdowns. They can't make a run because Jimmy G will get in the way. He'll be the reason that they don't win the Super Bowl. He was the reason they didn't win the Super Bowl a couple years ago, or that they didn't beat the Rams to get the Super Bowl last year. Well, he was pretty good last night. 4 touchdowns, 20 for 29, 228 passing yards. We had 2 TDs from Brendan Ayuk. Both of his catches were for touchdowns, 20 yards, and the 2 touchdowns from George Kittle, a nice 39-yard touchdown strike. He had 4 grabs for 84 yards. Christian McCaffrey led the way with 7 grabs, and Deebo Samuel also had 7 grabs. CMC a little bit more yardage. Man, team looks dangerous. They're getting healthy on defense. They're making things happen. The offensive line looks good. CMC just fits like a glove. They got a good 1-2 punch in the running back room. I think they're the most dangerous team in the NFC.
I don't think that's arguable, and I think if you're trying to argue that, then you have a favorite in that division and loyalties to another team. Because I mean, like you said, the defense is starting to piece it together. Crazy aggressive. Ward, the quarterback that John Lynch went out and got in the offseason, he looks like a complete animal. He's all over the field. Bosa up front, they just got, really good players at most positions. And that's just on the defensive side. On the offensive side, they've got stars at every position that matters. And I understand. Look, I live in Nashville. I support and go to battle for Ryan Tannehill in this kind of situation, saying he's not enough, and this, that, the other. Like, sometimes just enough is enough, and having a quarterback that's going to freelance and do things off script and wanting to take the game on his shoulders himself is problematic for a team like this. He's a manager, and that's exactly what they need. He is not even close to the best athlete or best player on the field, and he knows that his job is to get the ball to those players. He did that in masterful fashion last night. I think to win a Super Bowl, Jimmy G is going to have to make some difficult throws. Nothing he did last night was difficult. They're in the lead. They're in good, down and distance. Like, there was never really pressure on Jimmy G, and that's when he's at his best. When he's pressured and he's needing to make the big throw or fit it into a small window or something like that, that's when he crumbles. And what are they going to win the Super Bowl? I mean, who knows? But this team is crazy dangerous. Elijah Mitchell is Elijah Mitchell not the perfect running back to spell McCaffrey?
Oh my goodness, he runs so hard, right?
He's an animal. He's I don't know if he's going to be around for a long time, but he's going to be around for a good time. I love watching Elijah Mitchell run. Christian McCaffrey, this is exactly how he should be used. And look, I have him on plenty of teams, and the fantasy lunatic in me when I see Elijah Mitchell in the field because I don't have him in a ton of places. I get upset because,
Of course.
but in the real football world, in San Francisco is doing exactly what they should be doing. He should be catching more than he carries. He should be carrying, 10 or 12 times maximum. 10 or 12 catches. And that's good. I mean, he's still touching the ball 20 to 30 times, but in favorable spots where he's not banging it in, into the line. And he can do that too. I mean, he still runs with power. He's still a very good running back, but you want him in the playoffs. You want them both. They're a perfect match for each other. San Francisco they're going deep in the playoffs. Mark my words.
Well, we'll bring up the playoff picture in a little bit. If the playoffs started today, they would have another matchup with the Dallas Cowboys, which they did last season, and they won that game in Dallas. So that should be an interesting one. I just want to revisit this CMC trade. At the time of the deal, we liked it. We definitely liked it from a real-life standpoint for the Niners. We liked the thought of Christian McCaffrey in a better offense and with a better play caller and Kyle Shanahan. But there were some, concerns that we had. We had some concerns for maybe he'd lose a couple touches inside the red zone. Not even really thinking about Elijah Mitchell, mostly about Debo, getting in there, stealing a couple red zone rushing attempts, which he has done at times. He did a little bit yesterday. And they're just like everybody else inside the backfield, like maybe, or everybody else like on that team, like maybe he wouldn't catch as many balls in San Fran as, he caught in Carolina, and maybe the usage would be a slight downtick. It certainly has been. I mean, if you go look, like I just want to kind of revisit everything from McCaffrey here. So I'm just going to bring up his fantasy points, his game log. I'm going to use, of course, FTN, everything. So Christian McCaffrey, let's take a look at the back of the football card here in a half-point setting, because obviously his value is in a full point, but we'll split it. Some people still play old school standard. Do you have any old school standard leagues? Do you have any 0 points for a catch?
No.
No.
My original home league, 17 years, was a standard league, but we've switched over time. I still haven't been able to get rid of kickers. I try. Every year I try.
You try. Okay, so CMC week 1, 13 fantasy points, 10 carries, 33 yards, touchdowns. First game of the season, right? Injury. Week 2 and 3, phenomenal. 100 yards on the ground, 15, 25 carries, 15. And then, the first couple games he had 4 grabs. So 14, 12 fantasy points. I mean, he doesn't score any touchdowns in those games. So even 25 for $108 is only 12 fantasy points. Is worth showing in the first 3 weeks of the season. Then he pops off against Arizona, which he just played last night, but he was only 8 for 27 on the ground, but he caught 9 passes for 81 yards and he had a touchdown. Against the Rams was his best game as a member of the Niners. He threw for a touchdown, he ran for a touchdown, and he had a receiving touchdown, 36 fantasy points. It doesn't yesterday was 5.6 yards per carry. I mean, he only had 7 carries. It's the fewest he's had all season. You don't like that. But the fact that he is getting spelled for Elijah and, he's getting sprinkled in here and there, he has his best yards per carry day, but 39 rushing yards from Christian McCaffrey. That's not really what you signed up for when you drafted him in the first round. But he catches all 7 of his targets for 67 yards. He finishes with 14.1 fantasy points. And it's kind of what he's been averaging all year. He is averaging 17.5 fantasy points. So he's right around that number, but this is how they're going to use him. They talked to Kyle Shanahan at half, and he said the game plan is to get Elijah Mitchell more run in the second half, and that's exactly what happened.
I think if you took him like I did, first overall, I said, I think your people were crazy to take Jonathan Taylor over him. It turns out that I was very right mostly. I didn't think I was going to be that right, but I was very right. I said you're crazy to take Jonathan Taylor over him. The point is he still had over 100 yards, right? If he has that game every week, he's undoubtedly the running back number 1. And there's going to be games that are more competitive where he has to run more and has to be on the field more because he is their best player. he's probably the best player in the NFL when he's 100%. I don't know if that's arguable or not, but I think it is. I think he's. There was how many times last night did we see him line up in the slot and run like a Julian Edelman style route? Like there's maybe 4 or 5 other running backs that could even attempt to do that and not look like idiots, right? Like he's
right.
You can put him all over the field. There's so many different things you can do with him. And I mean, obviously Shanahan's already is starting to figure out the recipe. Like I don't need to just run this guy, hand him the ball and run him. Like he's valuable all over the field. He's like, he's Debo Samuel all over again.
Yeah. And
you got 2 of those guys. Good luck, right? Like,
yeah. And the offensive line is cooking. So Mitchell goes 9 for 59. That's 6.6 yards per pop. We mentioned CMC 5.6. Debo Samuel 3 carries for 37 yards. And I mean, it was basically on one run. He had 39 yards on that touchdown run there, the end around, and then one he was stuffed behind the line of scrimmage. But yeah, I guess as we wrap up from this game, Elijah Mitchell, his ownership is kind of right around that threshold that we talk about here, 60% Yahoo. It's a little bit higher now, 70%. So maybe people adding him over the past couple of days. But 2 games here since he's returned to the lineup, and I never would have imagined that he would have, 25 carries. I just wouldn't. Sorry, 27. I never would have imagined that he would have that. 18 for 89 and 9 for 59. So he is a flex play moving forward. You got the Saints this week, got Miami, Tampa, Seattle, Washington week 16, Las Vegas week 17. So yeah, it's clear they're going to keep CMC fresh. It's a very dangerous football team. They all have yak monsters on their squad. Kittle after the catch, Debo after the catch, Ayuk after the catch, and now you add CMC, and then Elijah Mitchell. It's I don't know, man. It maybe the best 1-2 punch in the NFL. Derrick Henry does lead the NFL in fantasy points per game at 18.5. Chubb is second with 17.2. Eckler is third with 16.1. This may surprise some people. Always a discount. Josh Jacobs, 16 fantasy points. Saquon Barkley, 15.4. CMC next at 14.8. Can you guess off the top of your head who number 7 is? I know I'm really putting you on the spot. But number 7, running back, who was really not drafted. I took him in the 26th round here live on our FTN Network YouTube page when I did a high stakes best ball draft over at NFFC. 26th round. He was the backup running back for a team that had a star running back that everybody wanted a piece of at the end of the first. He's dealt with some injuries. And this year, this backup running back has just dominated goal line work. He had
Jamal
2 or
Williams.
3 touchdowns over the weekend, and he's got 12. Is Jamal Williams,
love Jamal Williams,
ladies and gentlemen. Jamal Williams is 7th in fantasy points per game at the running back position, a half-point setting, 14.4. He's got 12 rushing touchdowns on the season. Unbelievable. Tony Pollard is next. Joe Mixon. Breece Hall would have been 10th, but of course he's got the injury. Dalvin Cook, we can put him in there. And then just like new blood, right? Ramondre's in the top 15. Kenneth Walker's top 15. Travis Etienne, Damian Pierce, and Jonathan Taylor round out like the top 20. So young blood at the running back position. Nothing really to add from the Arizona side of things. Rondale Moore. I saw some tweets. Rondale Moore. I saw something that one guy was up 1 point heading into the final matchup, and he had Rondale Moore, and he started Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore got him -6. I guess it wasn't 1 point he was up. I forget what the tweet was, but it surfaced. I think maybe Action Network retweeted it, or maybe Matthew Berry retweeted it or something, that this guy, EY, he was up 0.5 points heading into his matchup last night. He was up 0.5, and he decided to play Rondale Moore, who got -0.6, and he lost. He lost his matchup because he started. Would you ever play, if you're up 0.5, would you ever play a guy? I mean, I'd never play defense.
If he was already in, like, I wouldn't even think about it. I wouldn't think to take him out. Like, I just wouldn't. That's
you
just being honest.
Take him out, you would just play Rondale and get more points,
right?
That's what you would do. You play more points.
Yeah, I would.
Because tiebreakers and things like that, you're trying to get more points, right? You wouldn't think that he would fumble, get you negative, and you'd lose the matchup.
Exactly.
It's crazy.
Nobody would take him out. Anyone that says that or is playing this guy, that's just the fantasy gods being torturous, terrible, terrible people.
Unbelievable stuff when I saw that, man. I don't know. Like, I think to me too, like I'm shooting for the most points. I am not thinking he's going to get a fumble. He had 32 targets in his last 3 games. So he left early with a groin injury. He does nothing. And Greg Dortch leads the way with 9 catches, 103 yards, 10 targets. I suppose he is somebody to consider in deeper formats. No teams on bye this week, so a massive schedule. Don't got to worry about that. DeAndre Hopkins, another massive game from him, 9 grabs on 12 targets for 91 yards. AJ Green chips in with 5 catches for 50 yards, also had 9 targets. Jerry McBride is his first full game as a starting tight end. He has 4 targets, 4 catches, 14 yards, does nothing for you. Not really valuable. So that's it. We can get into just running backs before. Actually, you know what? Let's just wait. There's not a lot, on the waiver wire, really. Hopefully at this point you have yourself set up for a championship run. 2 quarterbacks, 2 defenses, 2 tight ends if you have to. Stash these running backs. We've been talking at length running backs to stash, and we'll get into a couple other ones. But this is the playoff picture inside the NFC. Let me know what you think about this. Eagles 9-1. A nice come from behind win. They finally faced some adversity, EY. This is talking about. They lost on home field to a division rival in Washington. Their offense did not look good in Indianapolis. The defense played fantastic. They came back at the very end of that game, and they won the game. The Vikings have a negative point differential, despite being 8-2 on the season. The Seattle Seahawks are 6-4. The Bucs are 5-5 coming off the bye and the big win in Germany against the Seahawks. You got the Cowboys and the Giants going at it on Thursday. They are 7-3. And according to reports, Odell Beckham Jr. is going to wait until Friday to make his decision on where he wants to sign. I wonder if he's waiting to see who wins that game between the Cowboys and the Giants. We have the Niners at 6-4, and the Commanders are in the hunt. Don't sleep on Washington. Taylor Heineke, another big dub from him, and the Falcons at 5-6. So if the playoffs started today, we would see the Giants and the Vikings. We would see the Seahawks and the Bucs. Oh, no. We would see the Niners and the Vikings. This is correct. The Seahawks and the Giants, and then the Bucs and the Cowboys. So I misspoke earlier. But it is very important for the NFC East team, whoever it is, to get that division. Not only do you get the bye, the road through the playoffs go through your building, but also, it looks like that 5 seed, of course, will play the 4 seed, but it looks like that 5 seed will be probably Dallas or Philadelphia. You got your division winners there, EY. The Vikings locked into the 2 spot, most likely. The Seahawks, potentially the Niners past the Seahawks. Like those 2 teams can flip-flop there. But maybe the Bucs. I would say either the Bucs or the Niners are that 4 seed, and that would mean the Cowboys. I don't think the Giants are going to win this week. I think the Cowboys or the Eagles get that 5 seed. So we're looking at like a juggernaut matchup potentially in that first round. Cowboys / Eagles / Bucs / potentially Niners. Like, what do you make of this potential? What do you make of this playoff picture? We obviously still have a few weeks to go, but any teams in here that you don't think will be there? The teams in white there on the left.
I think the Giants being in this position is bad for them. They're not a good team. Like, they're winning, I think, mostly because of the coaching. Saquon Barkley doesn't show up again last week. Daniel Jones has a really good game. He's throwing to nobody. Like, and Wan'Dale Robinson finally shows up, and they're like, okay, here we go. There's the guy. There's the guy that I'm going after in the waiver wire. He's gonna win my. Oh no, just kidding. He's out. He's torn ACL and he's done for the year. So I think the more they continue to win, the worse it is for them. It's going to affect their draft position. It's going to affect a lot of things. And the reality is they do not have a team that their defense isn't very good. Their offense is getting it done somehow, but it's just like piecing it together. Does that make sense to you? Like they shouldn't be in this position. And the more they win, the worse it's making it for themselves. I think that they probably can agree, even though they've won a bunch of games. Daniel Jones is not the future quarterback of this team. He exists somewhere else, whether that's in college or somewhere else in the pros. The Eagles, I really believe that they could go undefeated. And I know it's super rare, but I believe that they're the class of this league. They're the class of that division for sure. In that conference, like they're so good on both sides of the ball. Like their offense barely showed up against the Colts. and they still won.
Yeah. I
And
think they were missing
their
Dallas
offense
Goedert
not showing up.
too.
It doesn't make any sense to me. Like it doesn't make any sense.
I think it was just like honestly, I think it was Dallas Goedert. Like I really do believe he's a big part of the game plan. You know, he's kind of like the guy that Jalen looks to down the field.
If things don't work out, I can just throw it to him, kind of thing.
Yeah, and like third down situations, and like you have a lot of attention on the two wide receivers. So Dallas Goedert, I mean, Nick Sirianni said it. It was they had to check out a ton of the playbook because a lot of the playbook has Dallas Goedert written all over it. So a bit of an adjustment period there, but. Yeah, a loss for Philly. I would say all these teams, I could see Washington squeaking in here, to be honest with you. I really like the way that the Commanders are playing football with Taylor Heineke, and the defense is starting to get a little bit stronger. You're going to get Chase Young back. You got Payne and Sweat, and just guys that, can really get after the quarterback, and they're really good at stopping the run. Their schedule moving forward, a lot of winnable games, right? They got Atlanta this week. They got back-to-back against the Giants, EY. Week 13 at MetLife against the Giants. Then they got the bye week 14. Then they come out of that bye against the Giants again. If they can get both or even a split, they would have to get both. If they can get a win this week and then they get to 7-5, the Giants get to 7-4, everything will be riding on that game. Week 13 against the Giants, then out of the bye, the Giants again. Before it gets tough for them, they're going to wrap up at San Fran, Christmas Eve, Cleveland, and Deshaun Watson will be back, and then week 18 with the Dallas Cowboys. So interesting stuff there. Over in the AFC, actually want to say hi to Mr. Nice Guy. Good morning, Mr. Nice Guy. What is up? Also, I think he was all over the Jamal call when we were talking about the running backs. Of course, he was. And then, nope, leave it empty. Not really sure what that means.
He's talking about the Rondell Moore thing, and that's you would never leave it empty.
Oh, that's
your amount of points matter. I mean, in every league, it's how many points for is a tiebreaker and something. There's no way you leave it empty, and especially with Rondell Moore. He's going off. He's playing every game. He's catching 10 balls every game. Like,
and also like stat corrections. Like there's usually there's not usually. Sometimes there's stat corrections where I've been on both sides of it. One time I woke up Thursday morning in my semifinal matchup. I was thinking like my semi matchup was over on Sunday or Monday. I was thinking Thursday that I was going to the championship. So when I went to set my lineup Thursday morning, I realized that I was playing for the third place position. What happened? I checked and I was like a stat correction of like 2.5 points. Ended up losing in that spot. So I see both sides of it. Honestly, I'm probably playing the guy and just shooting for as many points as I can get, just in case those tiebreakers, right? And you just never know.
There isn't a human being on earth that doesn't play Rondell Moore. I'm insane.
Mr. Nice Guy wouldn't play him.
I'm insane when it comes to this stuff. Like I'm insane. The number one for me is I have too many teams that I wouldn't even notice. I wouldn't notice the score because I don't look. Like it's too much. Like I've set my thing. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I watch the games and enjoy them. I look at my scores at the end of the first set of games. I look at my scores at the end of the second set of games, and then I look at them before I go to bed. That's it. I don't look because it's torturous. The point is this:
you should
tell me a league where points for aren't the tiebreaker, or it's like these 6 teams.
If it's like it could be like head to head if it's like a 2-way tie or something,
right? Or it's points for is the the 7th team that gets in. The number 1 gets the bye. 1 through 6 are in the playoffs, and the 7th place team, whatever teams out of the teams left that has the most points, he gets in. I've been in leagues like that. Yeah. If you're winning, you're not pulling Rondell Moore out. And if you're on that much of a Jedi level and you predicted it, then congratulations. But I can guarantee it that never happened anywhere. It didn't happen anywhere. You've already won. You're not even worried if Rondell Moore catches a ball. You're not worried about it because you've already won. Thinking that he's going to fumble or get tackled for a loss and get hurt is, that's
galaxy
1 in a million.
Shit.
Literally, 1 in a million. You're not taking him out.
I'll tell you what we can agree on is a bad beat. Bad beat. It makes me sick to my stomach. Just kind of
everyone's got a story like this, right? If you play fantasy long enough, that one might be one of the worst of all time that I've ever heard, right? Like
It's wild, man.
I've probably told the story every time I think of this, a name pops in my head, and it's Rock Cartwright. And I think I've told the story, but I don't know if I did. Right. Rock Cartwright, a running back. You want to hear the story?
Yeah, the folks at home want to hear it.
17 years this league has been running. It's a really competitive league with a bunch of guys that live here in Nashville. Some guys in the wrestling business, some guys not in the wrestling business. It's an awesome league. We try to get together and do the draft in person. And if you're not doing that, you're missing out on the best part of the year. Try to get together in person. I know it can't always happen because it's hard, but if you can, do it. So anyways, semifinals. I'm playing this guy called Simon. This is probably 10 years ago. This is how much this hurt me. This is how bad this hurt me 10 years ago. I can still
sticking with him, folks. Sticking with him.
So Clinton, it's probably more than 10 years. It's probably 14 years. Clinton Portis is the starting running back for the Washington.
Oh, nice.
At the time, Redskins, Washington Commanders now.
Yeah.
Portis is hurt. He's out. And then there's who was the big guy that played? Is it Morris? I can't remember. Another guy.
Alfred.
He's out. Alfred Morris. Then there's a third string guy who's like a special teams player. He starts the game. Rock Cartwright's on the bench. This guy's got no running backs left, so he's got Cartwright thinking Cartwright might catch a couple passes. The starting running back gets hurt in like the first series of plays. Rock Cartwright, who was selling cell phones at a mall the week before, comes into this game in the playoffs. I'm in the semifinals. Washington has like 3 wins on the year. It doesn't matter. They're playing. I want to say it's Dallas, and Dallas is really good. Tony Romo's there. This is in that era where they're a really good team. And Rock Cartwright, he needs 36 points to beat me from Rock Cartwright. I've got no one left. He's got Rock Cartwright, and I'm 36 points ahead. Rock Cartwright runs for 286 yards and 3 touchdowns and scores 36.9 points, and I lose.
Unbelievable. The game of his life. What a performance. What a bad.
He went to the Raiders the next year as a special teams guy and never played another down in the NFL.
It's the game of his life.
Never played another down in the NFL. 37.9 points. I'll never forget it. I'll fight Rock Cartwright if I see him. If I get into a fight, I've never been in a real fight in my life. If I get into one, it will be with Rock Cartwright. I hope he sees this.
This guy, EY, has never been in a real fight in his life, but I bet
you he's an awesome guy, but I will never forget that name. It will haunt me forever. That happened in real life. 36 points, like 36.3 points ahead, and he scored 36.9. So I lost by 0.6. I feel your pain.
Ouch. That was harsh. We got to see if we can get him on the show. That was, that brought you back a little bit. Oh, man. We could discuss craziness all day long. And I'm sure a lot of people hanging out can as well. Fantasy, right? It's
no, it's a cruel mistress.
You just never know. That's hilarious.
I've said AFC playoff this season. I'm never playing again.
AFC playoff pitcher up at the top is just Mahomes' world. We're just living in it. Chiefs are fantastic again. It doesn't matter who they have at the wide receiver position. 8-2 up at the top. 7-3. A lot of 7-3 teams here. Man, I really dig this Miami offense. I really, really like what I've seen from them. The Dolphins are 7-3. The Titans are 7-3. The Ravens are 7-3. And the Buffalo Bills are 7-3. The Pats and the Bengals are 6-4. And the Jets at 6-4. Chargers lost a tough one. Another tough loss for the Chargers. And but they're still hanging around in the playoff hunt here. Man, want to kind of discuss the Jets with you just a little bit. Jets 6-4, Pats 6-4. We had the under in that game, 38. We didn't have to sweat that one out. Only one touchdown. It was a walk-off touchdown from the Patriots. Unwatchable. Really good defense on both sides. The Jets, my goodness, they certainly are a talking point. You go into New England at Foxborough and you only allow 3 points, really. And you lose the game on what that was a kick return. I think the first punt return touchdown of the season. Cordero had one, but it wasn't a punt return. It was a kick return. Anyways, Zach Wilson So Garrett Wilson had a freak out after the game. We should be better than this. He's a rookie. I don't know if he goes in the doghouse because Elijah Moore had a freak out a couple weeks ago and he was in the doghouse. I don't think that Garrett Wilson does. But Zach Wilson, man, this guy doesn't look like he understands the playbook. He doesn't look like he is a starting quarterback in the NFL. And, I didn't like what I heard from him after in the press conference. I didn't like, the question after was a bit of a BS question, EY, just, I'm paraphrasing here. Did you feel like you let the defense down? And he just shot down the reporter right away. It didn't look like he took any time to think about the question. For me, it didn't look like he was taking any accountability as a leader on the squad. I know he's only been in the league for a minute, but you're the quarterback. Your defense has played lights out, arguably one of the best defensive units in the league. You didn't throw any touchdowns. You looked awful throwing the football. 2 games against the Pats, what he had like 4 or 5 picks, and he just shot down the question right away. No, kind of next. To me, I felt like he looked like a spoiled brat. He didn't take any accountability as a leader. And I'm sure that answer rubbed his defense the wrong way because his defense is out there.
How could it not?
Just busting and playing good football. And to hear that, like maybe if you're Zach Wilson, you take, okay, like you just take a second to think about the question and you say, yeah, the defense is playing really good. Really proud of the way the defense played and, got to pick it up on offense. Just something cliche, anything besides that crappy answer and response.
Even if you believe that your play dictates that you don't have to answer that, that's how you answer it. As a leader, as a quarterback, that's what you are on this team. A quarterback is in the leader position. You're going to touch the ball more than any other player in the thing, and the offense rests on your shoulders. And look, I get that's a ton of pressure, but look, you're being paid, and that's what you signed up for. And if that's the answer, like the defense has been playing lights out all season, and they're winning games in spite of Wilson. There is no world that Joe Flacco isn't a better reason or a better quarterback for this team.
I agree.
There's no world where anyone can tell me any different. If you think Russell Wilson, the Wilsons.
I mean, who's the worst, Wilson or Zach or Russ? Actually, Zach's probably the worst. Russ.
At least Zach's not making $8 million or whatever it is, like $60 million or whatever it is. You mean he's bad, but he's being paid like he's bad. Russell Wilson's being played like he's going to be in the Hall of Fame, and he is not.
Maybe he's playing himself out of it. Who knows? I doubt it.
I think he is.
I don't know.
But anyways, Zach Wilson. That's embarrassing. That's a brutal game. His stat line was puke worthy. Like it was awful. Absolutely. It's awful. It's like there was times when he shows athletic ability, but most of that game, it looked like he was playing with his eyes closed. I don't know a lot about quarterback position or throwing a ball or any of that, but if it looks like you're playing with your eyes closed, I know that's not good.
I'll tell you what, I think that they are going to make a quarterback change. I think that they should. I think 100%. Their defense is good enough. Like, I mean,
you're 6-4.
You're 6-4. You got to win against the Bills. You just beat the Bills, and then you had a bye. You came out of that bye, and I get it. The Pats and Belichick and Foxborough, I understand all that. But he scored 3 points, and just the way that he carried himself after the game, he's definitely not the answer in New York. I don't think there's any question in that. And I think Flacco gives him the best chance to win. I don't know if Salah has the stones to make that switch. We'll see. I think it could happen. I said it yesterday, Mean Streets, and then after last night, I saw Salah say he's not committed yet to the quarterback position. So who knows? I think they go White, or I think they go Flacco over White. But Flacco is not fantastic either. I get it, but he's a veteran back. He's made some. He's had some good moments this season.
They
with Garrett
win
Wilson.
that game.
Garrett Wilson had a
Joe
massive
Flacco was the
performance. Yeah, they probably do, right? All he has to do is make a couple throws in that game. But anyways, that game was tough to watch. Mac Jones is really not that better. And anyways, 2 defenses there. The Bills got a winnable game this week. The Ravens are 7-3. Lamar Jackson not having a lot of touchdown passes this season. Is a concern for fantasy owners, but the Ravens are starting to get come together defensively. The Titans there at 7-3, and the Dolphins this week. So we'll get into the Thanksgiving games here in a second. Is there any hot waiver wire pickups for you? I got just a couple. At this time of the season, there really isn't a lot, as we mentioned off the top of the show in the previous episodes. you kind of want to have your running backs, handcuffed, other running backs handcuffed. You want to be fighting on the waiver wire at this time of the season with other people. So have 2 quarterbacks, have your buy set up, have 2 defenses. Know the defense. If you're set up for the playoffs, great, good for you. That's fantastic. Just don't put your hands behind your head and your feet up. Also, just because you have a bye, set yourself up. Who you playing week 15? Who you playing week 16? Which defenses are you suiting up? Have quarterbacks in place there, play the matchups. But I got a couple running backs written down here just in case, Rachaad White wasn't owned. He had a great game a couple weeks ago in Germany. Leonard Fournette has got the hip thing. It could be a split backfield. It could be like Tony Pollard and Zeke, where White is Pollard and Zeke is Leonard Fournette as the pass protector and the goal line back there. I think White deserves a few more touches. And, as a rookie running back, he had a week off to, learn the playbook a little bit more. And he did start the game, if that means anything to you, in Germany. He played the first couple of series. It was all Rachaad White, and he did look really good in that game. Melvin Gordon was just straight up released yesterday, placed on waivers, and then Chase Edmonds is week to week with a high ankle sprain. So the backfield, he had another fumble inside the red zone. Latavius Murray is now the guy there in Denver, whether you like the offense or not. Another game where if they scored 18 points in regulation, they would have pulled off a win, but they did not, and they lost, and they're brutal. One of my leagues, I have way too many Broncos. I like Sutton and Dulcich, and I got Latavius here. It's not great for my health, but Latavius now a 25% ownership, 17 carries, has a touchdown, catches 4 passes. Looks like he's going to fall into like 15 plus touches here. I don't think Denver does anything, brings anybody in, but it should be his backfield. So him and Rachaad White, I guess, just kind of scan the waiver wire to see if those guys are owned. I would just say Pacheco is owned, at 64% for now. He is owned. I'd say Jerick McKinnon is a nice little fallback option. Didn't do anything last week, but he had 6 catches in his 2 previous weeks. Mecole Hardman's on IR. MVS didn't do anything. Kadarius Toney was hurt, like in and out already. Tony's got a hamstring thing. So he's a guy maybe to consider in deeper formats. I don't know, Cam Akers, like you can't predict this backfield in LA. You just can't. No. Henderson seems to start the game, has a couple nice runs. I guess he got nicked up. He felt a little something in his knee. That's what Coach Sean McVay said. So maybe Akers, Kerwin Williams, I don't know, just have running back depth. I wouldn't feel great about starting any of them. CEH suffers a bit of an injury, so that's why I mentioned McKinnon in there. And then the last guy I'll talk about was a guy that we mentioned a couple weeks ago is like the next man up, maybe one of the better handcuffs in football, because say if an injury happens to Miles Sanders, it would be split between Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. But if an injury happened to Joe Mixon, who left the game last week due to a concussion, Samaje Perine would own that backfield. He was already the 3rd down back inside that offense. So he would fall into, I think, 20 opportunities, carries out of the backfield. He caught a couple passes. He had 3 receiving touchdowns. Remarkable. But he is a guy that I think just should be stashed, especially if you're a Mixon owner. Next man up, right? You just you don't want to fight on the waiver wire for some of these guys. Just kind of cover your bases at this time of the year.
Yeah, it's smart, right? Like, I mean, what's more valuable, having Samaje, if you're a Mixon owner, having Samaje Perine to cover the fact that you'll have a running back, or having Robert Woods or some other receiver that you're probably never going to play. Like, you got to really look at it that way. Like you were saying, sometimes 2 defenses is a really good idea, unless your team is already, done their bye, or they're like, like the Cowboys or somebody like that. Like, you're not starting probably any defense over the Cowboys or the Eagles defense. You're just not, right? There's no sense owning 2. But if you got like a middle of the road defense and you're kind of been streaming, sometimes looking forward to the schedule and having another one that has good matchups in the playoffs is a smart thing to do as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of the Chiefs, maybe Sky Moore will start to trend up. I got some wide receivers written down here that are owned in fewer than 60% of leagues that I feel should be owned. Darius Slayton, we talked about last week. His prop hit pretty easily. Paris Campbell, his prop also hit. Treylon Burks, George Pickens, Michael Gallup, Donovan Peoples-Jones. I would probably rank them Donovan Peoples-Jones, Pickens, Slayton, Burks, Campbell, Gallup, some sort of order like that. In larger leagues, Jarvis Landry, I think in a full point PPR setting. Nico Collins in a deeper format, 5 catches in back-to-back games, 48 plus yards in back-to-back games. He has a touchdown. He has 17 targets over his last 2 contests. So he is interesting to me. People may drop Josh Palmer. It's a mistake. Mike Williams had a setback, 8 catches, 106 yards, 2 touchdowns on 10 targets. So make sure he is rostered. And then don't go crazy over this one, but Jameson Williams, I think if you're fighting for a playoff spot, you probably just leave him on the wire as in redraft leagues. But if you're up near the top, you can shoot for some upside. Maybe you can afford to stash this guy. He is going to return to practice this week. I don't think he plays this Thursday, but he is somebody maybe we can see, I think we'll definitely see him in the last couple weeks of the season. He's a big threat guy. He kind of reminds me a little bit of Deshaun Jackson, can blow the top off defense. He's got a lot of speed. And the Detroit Lions defense is absolutely atrocious. So there are a couple wide receivers there. Any of those names you're super interested in? Donovan Peoples-Jones, Slayton Campbell, Burks, Pickens, Sky Moore to a deep.
Donovan Peoples-Jones is going to get a massive upgrade at the quarterback position. Zay Jones has kind of been a thing all year, right? He's not going to get you 15 points, but he's going to get you 6 to 10, and that's better than negative 0.6. I know that. Math again. I like those two. Jawan Jennings has been a guy that's been pretty interesting to me. He's kind of been popping off. I get Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel are the guys there, but Jawan Jennings has looked good. And often he plays the outside, and it looks to be a really good receiver. Stashing someone like that in case Ayuk gets hurt or something like that. It'd be interesting to know. Like we were talking about, if you're in a 2 quarterback league, I'm in this position where I've got Justin Fields, and I'll be surprised if he plays. And in that league, you can only carry two quarterbacks. So, does he play again? And how serious is it? Trevor Simeon's the backup there. Is that a guy that you trust to start? Are they going to sit Wilson like last week? White was the backup, and Joe Flacco was a healthy scratch. So, how do you read into that situation? Is it going to be White, the quarterback, or is it going to be Flacco? To me, why would you scratch Flacco if he's the one that you want coming in if Wilson gets hurt? So it's a wild world out there, guys. We're all just living in it. Morning there, Albert. Morning.
Good morning, Albert. We're just about to wrap up here. Would you rather have Brady, Herbert, or Jimmy G the rest of the season? So this is a good question. I'd probably have to look at the matchups. Yeah. I really like Jimmy G, but probably Herbert. He's the guy that has, I think, the highest ceiling. We could just take a look at these matchups.
That offense is going to roll again.
Yeah, for
Palmer
sure. So
Herbert has a huge game. Allen looked decent and will probably get better and more healthy as the season goes. Herbert for me.
I think Jimmy G is the perfect replacement for Justin Fields. As a Justin Fields owner myself, I was able to pick up Geno Smith and just like in a silly Yahoo league where he wasn't playing. I was able, as soon as that injury happened, I just went to the waiver wire and I was like, wow, who's on the waiver wire here? Just so I don't have to battle through waivers again. You can pick them up if they haven't played. You just drop a bench guy. And Tom Brady and Geno were both looking at me, and I just like Geno's matchup against Las Vegas. But Herbert has Arizona, Las Vegas, Miami, Tennessee, Indy, and Los Angeles. So pretty nice schedule there. Especially Arizona is obviously a good one. We just saw Jimmy G light him up for four touchdowns. Las Vegas is a fantastic matchup. Doesn't get much better than that. And then Miami's going to push the pace, and they allow a lot through the air. So those are some pretty good spots there to kind of get you into the playoffs. Tom Brady has Cleveland, the Saints, San Fran, Cincy, Arizona, Carolina. So a little bit tougher. Like in Cleveland's not bad, but it is in Cleveland. Could be some weather there. He should be okay. The Saints give him fits. In San Fran, week 14 is not going to be an easy spot for him. And plus he doesn't have a solid floor. Because he doesn't really have any rushing upside. For Jimmy G, the Saints this week, Miami, Tampa, Seattle, Washington, Las Vegas. He's got some decent games there. Again, Miami, a team going to push the pace. Tampa, they still have some nice defensive players. In Seattle, it won't be easy. In Seattle is never easy for anybody. The crowd's going to be rocking. playing good football. And then Washington week 16, the championship matchup week 17. You worry about when you get there is against Las Vegas is pretty good. I would say that I would go with Herbert there too. The quarterbacks, I guess, to stream if you need somebody this week, I would start here in the 70s with Geno Smith. We'll see if he's available. Marcus Mariota or Taylor Heineke in that game. I think I just lean Heineke, even though he's only got 13 fantasy points in back-to-back games. I think Mariota has a decent floor. He just lost Kyle Pitts for the rest of the season, but he's rushing, so he probably has a better floor than Heineke. But I do believe Heineke's got a higher ceiling if he can hook up with Terry McLaurin or one of his wideouts inside the end zone. That's okay. But I would say Jimmy G at 63% is a really nice target. You could roll with him probably the rest of the way. And then you're getting really desperate into like Tannehill or whoever starts with the Jets. Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett actually has been okay, man. Said this last week. He wide 19, 16 fantasy points. Decent schedule the rest of the way. So if you're in a really, really tough spot, you can go Kenny Pickett. I think we helped them out there. Thank you. Daily Handle. Everyone smash the like button. You're just in time. We're going to rapid fire through these through these 3 games here. Thanksgiving Day slate, EY. As you see, this is the week 12 schedule. No teams on bye here. We've seen a little bit of line movement. The boys are now 9-point favorites. We are seeing the Dolphins at 12-point favorites. I believe the Commanders have moved to 4-point favorites. We have the Ravens now at 4-point favorites. The Chiefs have moved up to like 14-point favorites against the Rams. And then we have, I think, the Eagles at 6-point favorites. We won't get into the schedule altogether. We are going to talk about the Thanksgiving Day games, though. Let's start here with the first one, and it's Buffalo and Detroit. Not a lot really to kind of get into. The Lions are playing good football. We talked about Detroit beating the Giants here. Josh Allen hasn't looked himself over the past couple weeks. You can say the elbow. He's had some red zone turnovers. You talked about in the green room, he didn't have a fantastic performance, but a nice spot here for Josh Allen, the offense, to bounce back. I think Singletary, you're playing Singletary with confidence. I think you got to play Jamal Williams. I don't think I would play any Swift. He kind of played third fiddle. It was like Williams and then Justin Jackson in there. Big spread, though. EY, what do you think? 9.5? You think the Bills roll, or you think the Lions hang tight here?
I feel like the Bills need to roll again at some point. I mean, like you said, like I think Josh Allen, it hinges on him, and he does not look like the same quarterback before the injury. He's hurt, right? That's a built-in excuse, automatic. But I mean, when he's not making things happen, this is not the same team. I think it's still a good defense. I think it's still a good team, and I think they're better than the Lions. I understand that they've won, 4 in a row now, the Lions? Is it 4 wins or 4 in a row? No.
The 3 in a row now for the
3 in a row. One earlier in the year. But yeah, I think the Bills roll here. 9.5, man. I mean, if you would ask me before the Josh Allen injury, I would have said no brainer. But I still think they do it. I think that the Bills show up here in a big way on Thanksgiving and push the pedal against Detroit.
I'm going to take Gabe Davis for an anytime touchdown at plus 155. Nice. Everybody else is kind of juiced here, minus for Diggs and Williams and Singletary. I'd say Singletary finds the end zone for a third straight week. Maybe more rushing attempts. Maybe Allen doesn't call his own number inside the 5 because of the injury. But I would go with him, or if you're looking for a longer shot, maybe Dawson Knox in there, or Bills defense to maybe pick off Goff at plus 370. The other game here, the Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. We have the Cowboys now at 9-point favorites. I think they roll in this game. I think they do. Their defense is playing really good. There's just no threat through the air, and that's my concern with the Giants. I'm sure you brought it up earlier when you were talking about them, is that Saquon is great. He's fantastic. But when you bottle up Saquon, Daniel Jones just doesn't have the weapons, and he doesn't, I don't think, has the ability to kind of keep up with this Dallas offense. So Pollard is rolling. Nice 2 punch there with Zeke. You got Lamb and Dalton Schultz to worry about. I'm going to go back to Darius Slayton. I'm not seeing anything when it comes to receiving yard props just yet. When it comes to the Giants, you're seeing some stuff here on DraftKings when it comes to the Cowboys. Actually, 47.5 for Darius Slayton. Giddy up. I'm going to take that one all day. Nice. And if I'm looking for a touchdown score from this game that's not juiced, Dalton Schultz plus 215, even CeeDee Lamb at plus 105. Not bad for those two, EY.
Yeah, I like both of those. I'm with you. I mean, the Cowboys, they just like literally smashed Minnesota, and I think Minnesota is a very, a pretty good team, much superior to the Giants. I think they showed last week, how you defeat the Giants is you just bottle up Saquon Barkley and you make Daniel Jones have to do it, and he's never shown that he can. He showed that again last week, and I think that the running game for the Cowboys is going to roll again this week.
Yeah, I think so too, man. Tony Pollard looks fantastic. He really does. So, yeah, there's really nobody to catch passes in New York. So don't hesitate to grab Darius Slayton. Plus 310 is a long shot for him to get a touchdown, but 48 receiving yards is something he's done pretty consistently over the past few weeks. And then the final, I think the boys roll, right? Parsons is going to be too much for Daniel Jones and company. I think we're going to see some turnovers. And yeah, we'll see the better team here win this football game. And then this one, I'm not sold. I think the Vikings, bounce back at home, but the Pats got a really good defense. I just don't believe in Mac Jones really at all when it comes to the New England Patriots. So you're getting the Vikings at home here, minus 155 on the money line, 3-point favorites, 8-2. Looking for some touchdown scorers from this game. Of course, you got Justin Jefferson, who is favored. Actually, plus 110. We can get behind that, right? Belichick does a pretty good job of taking away the opposing team's best players. I'm looking at Jefferson, but I'm also looking at TJ Hawkinson at 2-1. Hawkinson is getting a lot of targets here from Kirk Cousins, especially inside the red zone. Over the last 3 games, he's got 9, 10, and 9 targets. It's 28 targets for TJ Hawkinson, and he has 21 catches over that span. He does not have a touchdown EY, but I notice a lot of red zone looks his way. So TJ Hawkinson would be my touchdown call in this game. So I am going Gabe Davis. Knox is a long shot. CeeDee Lamb. Darius Slayton is a long shot. Dalton Schultz. And then I'll go Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson. And I am not going to pick a Pat, but if I would, kind of lame, but I'll probably just go for the odds and maybe go Damian Harris, maybe gets a goal line touchdown. He looked pretty good, but he's plus 160 compared to Ramondre's plus 120, and Ramondre is the better back. But any final words before we get out of here on this game? We see a lot of people hanging out now, guys. We were just about to wrap up the show and start Dangle Bet Selly, but we appreciate you hanging out. But any final words there, UI?
I'll just say that the Minnesota offensive line has got to figure it out. A lot of times people want to place the blame on Kirk Cousins. It had nothing to do with Kirk Cousins and getting smashed. Parsons and the rest of the Dallas Cowboys, they were in the backfield like Kirk Cousins. I mean, no human being could get rid of the ball quick enough. It was sad to watch. I mean, he just couldn't do anything. Justin Jefferson has mild turf toe apparently, which is heartbreaking. Yeah, I mean, if I was wild, and I am, I think that the Patriots figure out a way to win that game.
Okay, I like it. Yeah, I mean, good defense, right? It really is a very strong defense that can give Kirk Cousins some trouble. So we're going to get out of here, guys. We appreciate you hanging out. We've seen a lot of people roll in here towards the end of the show. Maybe they're gearing up for Dangle Bet Selly. We are going to go live here in a few minutes. Dangle Bet Selly. We're going to take a look at the 2 games on the ice, maybe a sneak peek of Wednesday, and just take a look at a lot of the teams that are surprising on both sides, good and bad. We'll take a look at some high danger chances and expected goals and things like that. So any waiver wire questions, hit us up at the Eric Young, at Chris Meaney. This is a point. Cousins can't handle the big stage and the bright lights. Primetime Kirk Cousins. It is absolutely a thing. Daily handle. We've seen that numerous times. So we'll say goodbye for now. Any waiver wire stuff, hit us up. Thanksgiving stuff, you can hit us up as well. Enjoy the football. Enjoy Thanksgiving Day, all you Americans out there, and we will be back on Friday, recap all the action on Thursday, and call some touchdowns and some props for the rest of Week 12. So from Eric Young, myself, Chris Meaney, we will say goodbye, and we will chat to you Friday. Cheers.